you can make people laugh while they're laughing, the fontanelles open in their mind and information can rush in. If you make people laugh, you can make people learn. The best teachers are those that make us smile, and you don't feel under siege. You feel somehow liberated.
Hi everyone, this is Silas Ram of AsianCultureVulture.com. We're here at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and we're with Hardeep Singh Kohli, whose show You-topia is one of the hot tickets of this year's festival.
Always been very political, and it seems the role of comedy is to reflect life and to ask perhaps difficult questions and make people think about things in a different way. So that's what the show's really about, because I believe we've got it within us to have a better world.
Sure.
It's just quite how we find that.
I see. And the way you put the show together, I like, it starts quite personally from when you were young. There's quite a feel of nostalgia about it. Was that something that you wanted to...
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia isn't what it used to be. I mean, for me, it has to be personal, else you're just a person standing there telling gags. Which, listen, I mean, there's some brilliant people that do that. I mean, some of my dear friends, but Jimmy Carr is a great gagmeister, but you don't learn very much about Jimmy at the end of the show. But you're massively entertained. Whereas you go see somebody like Russell Howard and you feel you get to know Russell through the show, or you see somebody like Sarah Millican, you feel you've left with some Millican on your soul. And there's worse places to have Sarah than on your soul.
You want people to get a glimpse of your soul?
Insofar as if they're prepared to look at my soul, they're perhaps prepared to examine their own. And comedy really, if you look at the history of comedy, jesters always said the difficult things that the king didn't want to hear, or the queen didn't want to hear, so the jesters would say it. And they somehow had a rather special position in that they weren't, and if anyone else said it in the court, they'd be killed, but the jester got away with it. But the jester, in a sense, is Jiminy Cricket, it's everyone's conscience. So that's really our role and our function, and comedy has to be meaningful, else there's no point to its existence.
I think what I like about it, in the sense that it is political, but you only mentioned Trump once, really, and there's only one Trump gag. So
I like to think it's a very good Trump gag, but then I'm bound to think that. I mean, I just think, I'm from the left. I'm, quite far left. I believe in socialism, and I believe in community and society, and I believe in people working together. And I think capitalism has been shown to utterly fail in a way that far exceeds the failure of communism. Yet nobody seems to be jumping up and down about it. But for me, I think the way the ruling classes and the entitled classes keep the rest of us subjugated is by battering us with politics. The last thing I want to do is actually talk about Trump, talk about Theresa May, talk about Brexit, talk about these issues that are defining our lives in a third-person way. Because ultimately, politics is about people. Polity is about people, and it's how we function and how we structure our society for the betterment of people.
Yeah, I think the way you approach it,
but not the Muslims, obviously.
The way you approach it, the utopia, the idea of utopia. What would be your utopia?
There'll be lots of food, lots of excellent music, no television, no internet, and lots of books.
And so would it be like that commune that you talk about in the show?
Well, I think this is the problem. I mean, from my growing up, and listen, it's very fashionable to say things were better then. Things weren't better, they were just different. But I think some of the things that were different, we've lost sight of. And people say there's no community anymore. There's an amazing community, it just happens to be online. I have great friends on Twitter I've never met, but I that are dear friends, and on Instagram and stuff, and we can figure our sense of community in a different way. But I think increasingly, we've reached a benchmark, and I mentioned this in the show, where 1% of the world's super rich own half the world's wealth. How is that okay? How is that all right that since 2008, the 1,000 wealthiest families have doubled their income, while disabled people have had to commit suicide because they're not given benefits? I mean, you define a society by how those with the greatest need are treated, and if that's the case, there is no civilization in the West.
So but are you depressed about the situation, or?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think history and politics is cyclical. You know, I mean, what's interesting that's happening in America, if one draws parallels with the Roman Empire, the Roman Empire lasted 3 centuries. America's lasting 3 centuries. America's due a massive reboot. No, if you look at the Chinese cultures, the Indian cultures, no political system has really lasted more than 3 centuries. Right. And here we had the Industrial Revolution, which then re-engaged our political system. But, you know, things are absolutely messed up in this country. That 100 years after women have voted, we can't find a mechanism to get women to Parliament. You know, England doesn't have a Parliament. Scotland has a Parliament, Wales has an Assembly, and there's an Assembly in the north of Ireland. But the biggest part of the UK doesn't have a Parliament.
And you think that's a bad thing? That's a wrong?
Of course it's a bad thing. I mean, if we agree that democracy is a good thing, if we had democracy increases accountability, then in 2018 we're still talking about developing northern powerhouses. That we're still talking about incredible cities like Manchester, Sheffield, Liverpool, Newcastle. I mean, you know, feminism started in Manchester and it doesn't have a high-speed link across the north of England because all the money's in London. London's the issue.
Okay, thanks, Hardeep. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
There was no vultures here.